First and foremost, big hi to everybody watching the current stream. My name is Ahmed Nimale. I am the product lead for Ticketmaster Livestream at Live Nation and pretty much all things virtual concerts and events within Live Nation for the time being. Just wanted to say, first and foremost, excited to be a part of this breakout session. Thank you for joining. If you do have any questions throughout the remainder of this session, please feel free to ask. But the real focus of this breakout session is discussing how to tell the art of storytelling during effectively what is one of the most distant times in human history during this global pandemic, using the power of live events and artificial intelligence. One of the things I think I picked up is throughout my journey as a human and as a product leader, it's always stress that you be incredibly empathetic to the people around you, to put yourself in the shoes of the person whom you're trying to sell that good or need to. And it's never been even more so critical to my skill set, and I think to any individual who's a creator skill set today. I reflect on stories as a young child that my mother told me of a Somali king called Wilwal. And through these stories and these narratives, she instilled within me a level of culture, a level of home, a level of sacred knowledge, per se, of what it really meant to be a man and what it really meant to be a human that is willing to lead in the right ways and to discern things as they should be discerned. And these stories carry on today, whether we talk about in the digital forms of social media, music, live concert experiences as they once were, where it's effectively a sense of expression and unity that comes from there. Now, during the global pandemic and during the state of affairs that we're currently in, one of the things that I'd love to impart to those listening is understanding that the forms of communication and storytelling are drastically changing, more so now than ever, and are being incredibly expedited by COVID. The thought that individuals and people today pay extravagant amount of money to watch somebody just do the simplest human acts, such as eat, goes to show the level of intimacy people are finding on digital platforms. Now, within that, you can discern a few things. Is it really social? But effectively, for those jumping in from the initial session, the discussion's really about the overall shift in communicating and storytelling and what is determined to be social, in today's age. We just had touched base on the topic of how COVID has expedited what is now the new norm for social and digital communication, where we cite examples of individuals paying and donating to watch other individuals eat. When you look at these creators and influencers, and you might be telling yourself, there isn't a level of intimacy at all. There isn't really much there. It's just a person eating. But it's what people are currently using, and I think Gen Z and Twitch and the rise of these live streaming e-commerce shops are really showing people is that intimacy on digital platforms can vary from simple day-to-day tasks and interacting in that way to full-on live concert experiences where, it would be wild. It'd be beyond one's wildest imagination to assume that you can have the same experience as an in-person concert to a digital live streaming concert at the seat of your home. Well, I'm here to tell you that the lines are blurring very, very, very rapidly. One thing that I would love to impart onto any creator listening and helping them define the art of storytelling when using digital and tools such as AI and live stream is that effectively understanding how these mechanisms work today and how they are going to work 10, 20 years down the line. With the rise of Twitch, we've learned a lot about how individuals are forming communities around a creator, doing gaming or doing mundane tasks or around a common interest. From a concert perspective, I've seen a lot of success allowing musicians and concert goers to have an intimate scenario where they sit down and have a conversation, or sit down and do a meet and greet, and the artist and musician during and after their performance can sit down with their audience and learn from them and build a level of intimacy, and get questions asked about parts of the song that the audience members always thought the meaning of X was this. And we're also seeing this vertical happen in gaming, where musicians are crossing lines with gamers. Like we've seen it with Drake and Ninja, and we've seen the power of AI in the insights and the data that's being driven from these events, and specifically around the compilation around audio, metric-based, user session-based data, and how that's being consolidated to drive insights. And as a story, data and artificial intelligence is not to be thought of as this high-level thing where it's just like, hey, it's a machine in a program telling me what to do. No, it's more so a program consolidating all your information or insights from one of your live streams or your specific events that you did, and teaching you, hey, there was X amount of users that stayed on for this long, and we saw a massive spike when you said these few things, or you touched on this topic. That's really the future in which I feel like AI is going to be powering the art of the storyteller, providing them insights on where they've succeeded or failed with their audience and who their audience really is. And that's the piece where I find that there's going to be a lot of success in empowering storytellers and empowering creators. Now, when looking at how to utilize virtual live streams and all these good things, and you look no further than Twitch, you look no further than YouTube and these free accessible platforms. And whether your voice is about being able to connect with an audience, or it's about sharing a story, a specific, let's just say, human right that you want to put out there. I think we've seen no better than Hong Kong, where people have gone to extraordinary lengths using VPNs and other mechanisms to show what's going on live in foot and sharing their stories on multiple different platforms. And this is going to be forever the method in which people are going to be able to use it to tell their story on a digital end. It goes from my initial point of the story my mom told me and her grandmother told me of Will, that incredibly thoughtful and wise king, and the little antidotes he shared to me when I was growing up, to now myself being able to share that with an audience of X amount of people here. And that is really truly the power of digital and live events and live streaming, as it will shift the nature of the conversation and disperse your thoughts and cultures to different parts of the world. Now, I know I've been rambling a bit here, and we had a little bit of an interlude there, but I'm open and would love to take any questions around how the specifics of storytelling and the changing nature of what is considered a live event, specifically how we're shifting from truly in-person live, and how we're seeing the rise of virtual concerts with multiple creators. Code Miku on Twitch is a huge one right now. It's really defining, let's just say, VTubers, which is a virtual human being leading a YouTube channel. And Hitsumiyu, and I'm butchering the name, but he's a massive Japanese artist who's a hologram. So there's a huge shift happening. I think generationally, this is something that is of note, and is happening much faster and has been expedited due to COVID. Yet again, here I would love to take any questions and learn from you all if you have any stories to share. But for those joining, yet again, let me just recap. First and foremost, there's been a huge growth and adoption for virtual. due to COVID and the pandemic. Obviously, these are behaviors that existed, and my references are people paying people to eat on Twitch, virtual artists and virtual YouTubers being a prominence prior to the pandemic, to now, changing definitions of what is really social and what is a live event, where social is now having a digital component to the way we interact. And the second piece being the live event no longer needing to be fully in person and live. But yet again, would love to hear some stories. If you guys have any questions, I'm here for it. All right, just to summarize the points here. Referencing my initial thought about my mother sharing that story with me when I was very young about Will Well, and the anecdotes of how he tackled problems, and he's a wise king, and those stories from our culture, and how the art of storytelling now is much more vibrant because it impacts much more people. I'm sharing that story my mother told me with an audience of all of you, and the changing definitions of what is truly social and incorporating that digital component. As I mentioned, examples such as the Twitch phenomenon, where people are watching people do intimate activities. The second piece being the rise of, during COVID, more virtual concerts, which from personal experience I can say is just as, if not provides more opportunity for intimacy than a real concert, to a certain extent, when played correctly. And the third piece being, as a storyteller, the key thing in understanding how to use AI and artificial intelligence is understanding the concept of AI, in leveraging that to consolidate insights from your data sets and using it to hone in how to say the right things and learn and get feedback from telling your story on the web. As a storyteller now, it's much more different than being a storyteller in our parents' age, because now, instead of our parents or our forefathers having to tell a story to a specific cultural group of people that have the same norms, thoughts, and vibrance, you are now having to impart and communicate, be perceived as you want to be telling that story to multiple cultures and sensibilities across the globe. So AI is a great way for you to understand how impactful you are with the majority amount of the audience. And not only that, but really drives your ability to adapt and tell your story in a way that I think most amount of people can be successful in receiving, and for you to build that community or share your personal story. My name is Ahmed Nimale. I am a product manager at Ticketmaster Universe, Live Nation. And that's pretty much it for me. Oh, I guess, yeah. How has storytelling changed? I think that's a great question. When we look at storytelling from a narrative perspective, we can see that stories have been passed down from, I'll give you a great example here. As somebody that has the Somali heritage, the way that stories were passed down and how they were shared was a form of competition. It was an arena through poetry, through mediums that were shared directly from one to one, where you're telling that story directly to that person. And then we had storytelling shifts when the adoption of reading and writing became a thing, where there would be libraries and bibliotecas of novels and books that would share a crazy amount of stories, but they would always be localized. Now, when we're looking at the digital age, with this thing called the internet, there's been a huge shift, and it's been multiple shifts that have happened in the past 20 years. The initial shift of one is being exposed to different cultures and groups in a setting that's a little bit less formal, and that happened in 2004 with the rise of Facebook, where people could simply connect and write on each other's walls. However, the sense of community has always been community, and those shared stories have been specific to that. And then the rise of other networks that brought us closer, and globalization is a piece there. Now, we share our stories to a wider population of people through images, through 150 characters, to the third piece being live streams, completely live, being able to have that same kind of experience that my forefathers did, but with much more people in that regard. What are 3 ingredients of an impactful story? Now, I think that's a great question. I think when looking at ingredients to deliver an impactful story. And I'll try to loop this back into my expertise in live events. I found storytellers that had, one, the ability to keep frame, and what I mean by frame is have a framework and a structured flow. I like to cite the hero's journey when telling a story. Strong structure, a sound intent, and pauses, or an understanding of your visual medium. I think are three incredible ingredients. When I reference comedic timing, or if you're more of a spoken poem, you're the way that you hit your stanzas and your soliloquies, but it's flow. So if I want to repeat myself without going into a ramble there, it's having structure, flow, and I'd like to ask the last piece, as I mentioned, it's going to be rhythm. Having the ability to understand what your positioning of content is going to be, what your positioning of all of the components that make your story, whether it be imagery or audio, come together, and how they flow together. So yet again, I don't want to put this back into a rap piece, but it's always going to be structure, it's going to be flow and rhythm, and that's going to be the key piece. Thank you yet again. Love to be a part of this. It is 7 o'clock in Toronto. Thank you so much for letting me join the stage, and I hope that I provided some insight.